In the shadows of medieval history lies a manuscript so extraordinary that its very existence challenges our understanding of human capability. The Codex Gigas, more commonly known as the Devil's Bible, stands as the largest surviving medieval manuscript in the world. Created in the early 13th century within the walls of the Benedictine monastery of Podlajice in Bohemia, now the Czech Republic, this remarkable tome has captivated scholars, religious authorities, and historians for centuries. Its name, Codex Gigas, literally meaning giant book in Latin, offers merely a glimpse into its profound significance in both religious and historical contexts. The manuscript's reputation extends far beyond its physical dimensions, encompassing a rich tapestry of historical documentation, religious texts, and medieval knowledge. Within its pages lie not only the complete Latin Bible, but also historical chronicles, medical treatises, and various other texts that collectively served as a medieval encyclopedia of human knowledge. However, what truly sets the Codex Gigas apart is not merely its contents, but the mysterious circumstances surrounding its creation and the legendary tales that have grown around it over the centuries. As we delve into the story of the Codex Gigas, we encounter a fascinating intersection of faith, human determination, and medieval craftsmanship. While legends speak of supernatural intervention in its creation, the truth behind this masterpiece reveals something perhaps even more remarkable: the extraordinary capabilities of medieval scholarship and human dedication. The physical presence of the Codex Gigas commands immediate attention. Measuring an impressive 36 inches in length, 20 inches in width, and nearly 9 inches in thickness, the manuscript weighs a staggering 165 pounds. Its creation required the skins of more than 160 donkeys, resulting in 310 vellum pages of exceptional quality. The scale of this undertaking becomes even more apparent when considering that these pages cover a total area of approximately 1,500 square feet. Each page demonstrates remarkable craftsmanship, featuring carefully ruled lines, consistent lettering, and elaborate decorative elements. The text is written in Latin, with large capital letters meticulously executed in red ink, often spanning 5 to 6 lines in height. The manuscript's preservation quality remains extraordinary, testament to both the superior materials used in its creation and the careful stewardship it has received over the centuries. See historical significance, 250 words. The Codex Gigas represents far more than a mere religious text. It stands as a comprehensive compilation of medieval knowledge and craftsmanship. Its creation, during the 13th century, coincided with a period of significant cultural and intellectual development in European history, marking the transition from early to high medieval period. The manuscript serves as a unique window into medieval scholarship, religious practices, and the transmission of knowledge during this pivotal era. Its historical significance extends beyond its content to encompass its role in European political and cultural relations. The manuscript's journey through various hands, from monasteries to royal collections, reflects the complex interplay of religious, political, and cultural forces that shaped medieval and early modern Europe. Today, housed in the National Library of Sweden, the Codex Gigas continues to draw scholars and visitors from around the world, serving as a testament to human achievement and the enduring power of written knowledge. The creation of the Codex Gigas emerged during one of medieval Europe's most transformative periods. The 13th century marked a time of profound religious devotion, intellectual awakening, and significant social change across the European continent, particularly in Bohemia, where the manuscript originated. During this period, Bohemia was experiencing a golden age under the rule of the Przemyslid dynasty. The region had become a crossroads of European culture, where Latin Christian traditions merged with local customs. Monasteries, particularly those of the Benedictine order, served as centers of learning and manuscript production, preserving and transmitting knowledge through carefully crafted texts. The Benedictine monastery of Podlajice, where the Codex Gigas was created, exemplified the period's monastic tradition. These monasteries operated as self-contained communities, housing not only monks dedicated to prayer and spiritual pursuits, but also skilled craftsmen, scribes, and scholars. The creation of manuscripts was considered a sacred duty, combining religious devotion with scholarly preservation of knowledge. The 13th century also witnessed the rise of European universities and a renewed interest in classical learning. This intellectual renaissance influenced the content and structure of the Codex Gigas, which reflects the period's encyclopedic approach to knowledge. The manuscript's inclusion of various texts, from biblical scriptures to medical treatises, mirrors the medieval belief in the interconnectedness of all knowledge under divine providence. The economic conditions of the time played a crucial role in the manuscript's creation. The production of such a massive work required substantial resources, from the procurement of hundreds of animal skins for parchment to the expensive pigments used in illumination. This level of investment indicates the monastery's significant wealth and the high value placed on manuscript production during this period. Political stability under the Przemyslid dynasty enabled such ambitious cultural projects to flourish. The monastery's ability to undertake the creation of the Codex Gigas suggests a period of relative peace and prosperity, though this would change in the centuries that followed, affecting the manuscript's journey through history. Within the stone walls of the Podlajic monastery, Brother Herman stood as a figure of both profound scholarship and tragic destiny. Before his involvement with the Codex Gigas, Herman had established himself as one of the monastery's most accomplished scribes. His early years in the monastery were marked by exceptional dedication to his craft, with numerous smaller manuscripts bearing witness to his masterful penmanship and attention to detail. Records from the monastery's archives suggest that Herman had spent over 2 decades perfecting his skills in calligraphy and illumination. His profound understanding of religious texts and his ability to work with various forms of written material made him invaluable to the monastery's scriptorum. Fellow monks often sought his guidance in matters of textual interpretation and manuscript preparation, establishing him as a respected figure within the monastic community. However, the course of Herman's life changed dramatically following an incident that remains shrouded in mystery. The monastery's chronicles speak of a severe transgression, though the exact nature of his offense remains sealed within the pages of the monastery's private confessional records. Some historical accounts suggest that Herman had violated one of the fundamental Benedictine vows, possibly those of poverty, chastity, or obedience. The gravity of his offense becomes apparent through the severity of his punishment. The monastery's leadership, after careful deliberation, sentenced Herman to solitary confinement. His cell, described in contemporary accounts, measured barely 8 feet by 8 feet, with only a small window providing limited light and air. This space would become both his prison and his workshop, where the greatest work of his life would take shape. In the depths of his isolation, Herman faced the prospect of permanent imprisonment or death. According to monastery records, he proposed an extraordinary offer to the abbot and the monastic council. He would create a manuscript unlike any other, one that would bring fame and prestige to the monastery. This book would contain not only the complete Bible, but also a compilation of all human knowledge available to the monastery. The abbot, recognizing both the potential value of such a work and the opportunity for Herman's redemption, agreed to this proposal. The terms were strict. Herman would be given the materials necessary for this monumental task, but he would remain in solitude until its completion. The monastery would provide parchment, inks, and necessary texts for reference, all delivered through a small opening in his cell door. As Herman began his work, the isolation began to weigh heavily upon him. The only sounds that filled his days were the scratching of his pen against parchment and the whispered prayers that guided his hand. The physical and mental demands of such precise work under these conditions were extraordinary. Each page required careful preparation, precise ruling, and meticulous copying, all while maintaining perfect consistency in script and layout. The psychological impact of his confinement manifests in the manuscript itself. Throughout the text, particularly in the margins, one finds brief personal notations, whispered confessions, and prayers for strength. These rare glimpses into Herman's state of mind reveal a man grappling with both his past sins and his desperate hope for redemption through his work. The most controversial aspects of Herman's story emerge from this period of isolation. Fellow monks reported hearing strange sounds from his cell during the night. Mumblings, unusual scratching noises, and what some described as conversations with an unseen presence. These accounts, recorded by the monastery's chronicler, would later contribute to the manuscript's sinister reputation. As months stretched into years, Hermann's dedication never wavered. His work proceeded with an almost superhuman consistency, each page displaying the same precise handwriting, regardless of fatigue or the passage of time. This remarkable consistency would later become one of the manuscript's most debated aspects among scholars. The story of Hermann concludes with the manuscript's completion, though historical records are unclear about his ultimate fate. Some accounts suggest he was released from his confinement and readmitted to the monastery's general population, while others indicate he may have spent his remaining days in voluntary seclusion, forever marked by his experience. The creation of the Codex Gigas stands as one of the most remarkable achievements in medieval manuscript production. The process began with extensive preparation, requiring an unprecedented amount of materials and careful planning. The monastery's records detail the extraordinary scale of resources allocated to this project, including the specially prepared skins of 160 donkeys for the parchment alone. The writing process itself followed a strict and methodical approach. Each page required careful preparation before a single word could be written. The parchment sheets were first cut to size, then carefully ruled with lines to ensure perfect text alignment. This ruling process, visible in the manuscript today, shows remarkable precision, with consistently spaced lines that maintain their accuracy across all 310 pages. The creation of the text itself demonstrates extraordinary discipline and skill. The manuscript's uniform writing style represents one of its most remarkable features. Expert analysis reveals that the entire text was indeed written by a single hand, showing incredible consistency throughout. The scribe maintained the same precise letter forms, spacing, and stroke weight across hundreds of pages, a feat that typically proves impossible over such a lengthy work due to natural variations in handwriting caused by fatigue, aging, or changing conditions. The ink production process required particular attention. The primary text was written in dark brown ink, while red and blue inks were reserved for important headings and decorative elements. These inks were carefully prepared according to traditional monastic recipes, requiring specific minerals and binding agents. The remarkable preservation of these colors over centuries testifies to the quality of their preparation. The illumination and decoration of the manuscript followed a carefully planned scheme. The most striking decorative elements include the famous full-page illustrations, particularly those depicting the heavenly city and the portrait of the devil. These illustrations required special pigments and demonstrated sophisticated artistic techniques in their execution. The artist showed remarkable skill in creating depth and detail, particularly in architectural elements and facial expressions. The organizational structure of the manuscript reveals careful planning from the outset. The texts were arranged in a logical order, beginning with the complete Vulgate Bible, followed by various historical and medical texts. The consistency in layout and organization suggests that the entire project was conceived as a unified whole, rather than assembled from separate sections. Beyond the technical aspects of production, the manuscript contains evidence of deep scholarship. Marginal notes and corrections show careful proofreading and editing. Cross-references between different texts demonstrate the scribe's comprehensive understanding of the material. The integration of various sources into a coherent whole required not just copying skills, but substantial scholarly expertise. The completion of the manuscript marked a significant achievement for both the scribe and the monastery. The final stages included the addition of elaborate initials and finishing touches to the decorative elements. The binding of such a massive volume presented its own challenges, requiring special techniques to secure the heavy parchment pages. Contemporary accounts from the monastery speak of the manuscript's immediate impact. Its completion was marked by a ceremony of dedication, though details of this event remain sparse in historical records. The sheer scale and quality of the work immediately established it as one of the monastery's most valuable possessions. In the weeks following its completion, monks from neighboring monasteries traveled to view this remarkable achievement. The manuscript quickly gained a reputation that extended beyond Bohemia, attracting attention from religious and secular authorities alike. Its existence became a source of pride for the monastery, enhancing its reputation as a center of learning and craftsmanship. The Codex Gigas exhibits a remarkably sophisticated organizational structure that reflects medieval approaches to knowledge classification. The manuscript's contents follow a carefully planned hierarchy, beginning with the complete Vulgate Bible and expanding into various secular and religious texts. This arrangement demonstrates a medieval worldview where divine and secular knowledge were seen as interconnected parts of a unified whole. The manuscript opens with the Old Testament, starting from the book of Genesis. However, the first few pages of Genesis are notably missing, leading directly into the middle of chapter 4. Following the Old Testament, the New Testament continues the biblical sequence, maintaining consistent formatting throughout. The biblical texts occupy approximately half of the manuscript's total volume, establishing its primary religious purpose. Following the biblical texts, the manuscript contains several significant works. These include Josephus's Antiquities of the Jews and the Jewish War, providing historical context for the biblical narrative. The Chronicle of Bohemia, by Cosmas of Prague, follows, connecting sacred history to local historical records. This seamless integration of religious and historical texts exemplifies medieval scholarship's holistic approach to knowledge. The manuscript's layout demonstrates exceptional planning and execution. Each page follows a strict two-column format, with precisely ruled lines maintaining consistent text placement. The margins contain carefully planned spaces for annotations and decorative elements. The text size remains remarkably uniform throughout, with approximately 106 lines per column, demonstrating extraordinary control and execution. Decorative elements follow a hierarchical system. Chapter beginnings feature elaborate initial capitals, often spanning multiple lines and incorporating intricate designs. These initials use a combination of red and blue inks, with detailed flourishes extending into the margins. Secondary divisions within texts receive smaller decorated initials, while paragraph breaks are marked with simple colored capitals. The writing style maintains remarkable consistency across all texts. The Gothic minuscule script shows professional execution, with each letter formed according to strict calligraphic standards. The scribe maintained consistent letter height, spacing, and stroke weight throughout the manuscript, a feature that has puzzled scholars given the work's massive scale. The manuscript includes several full-page illustrations, most notably the portrait of the devil and the depiction of the heavenly city. These illustrations are strategically placed within the text, creating visual punctuation points that divide major sections. Their placement suggests careful consideration of the manuscript's visual rhythm and reading experience. The final section of the manuscript contains medical texts and various practical treatises, including works on practical medicine, bloodletting, and astronomical calculations. This arrangement reflects the medieval monastery's role as a center of both spiritual and practical knowledge. The biblical content within the Codex Gigas represents one of the most complete medieval Latin Bible transcriptions. The manuscript contains the entire Vulgate text, Jerome's authoritative Latin translation, executed with exceptional accuracy. The biblical texts demonstrate particular attention to detail in their presentation, with each book beginning with elaborately decorated initials that often incorporate symbolic imagery related to the text's content. The scribe's careful treatment of biblical passages reflects their paramount importance in medieval scholarship. The Old Testament section reveals meticulous attention to textual traditions. Each book maintains consistent formatting while incorporating traditional chapter divisions and canonical arrangements. The scribe included Jerome's prologues to various books, providing important contextual information for readers. The treatment of Psalms deserves special mention, featuring enhanced decorative elements and careful attention to liturgical divisions, reflecting their central role in monastic worship. The New Testament portion exhibits equally careful execution. The Gospels receive particularly elaborate treatment, with enhanced decorative elements marking their beginnings. The scribe included the standard medieval canon tables, helping readers cross-reference parallel passages between the Gospels. The manuscript's treatment of Revelation includes subtle decorative elements that complement its apocalyptic themes without straying into excessive ornamentation. Following the biblical texts, Josephus's historical works provide crucial context for understanding biblical history. The inclusion of Antiquities of the Jews and the Jewish War demonstrates the medieval church's interest in historical verification of biblical narratives. These texts receive treatment nearly equal to biblical content in terms of textual care and decorative elements, indicating their high status in medieval scholarship. The Chronicle of Bohemia by Cosmas of Prague represents a pivotal inclusion, connecting sacred history to local contexts. This text provides invaluable historical information about early medieval Bohemia, including details about the region's Christianization and political development. The chronicle's presence demonstrates the manuscript's role in preserving both universal and local historical knowledge. Medical texts within the Codex Gigas reflect medieval understanding of health and healing. These include comprehensive treatises on diagnosis, treatment methods, and pharmaceutical preparations. The medical sections demonstrate particular attention to practical application, with clear instructions for various treatments and detailed descriptions of medicinal herbs. The inclusion of these texts alongside religious works reflects the medieval monastery's role as a center for both spiritual and physical healing. The manuscript contains several texts devoted to astronomical calculations and calendar computations, essential for determining religious feast days. These sections include detailed tables and mathematical formulae, demonstrating sophisticated understanding of medieval computus, the science of calculating ecclesiastical calendar dates. The precision in these calculations reflects their crucial role in organizing monastic life and liturgical celebrations. The inclusion of Saint Isidore of Seville's etymological works provides encyclopedic knowledge covering various subjects from grammar to natural history. These texts receive careful organization with clear chapter divisions and subject headings, facilitating reference use. Their presence demonstrates the manuscript's role as a comprehensive repository of medieval knowledge. The most striking visual elements of the Codex Gigas are its two full-page illustrations, the portrait of the devil and the depiction of the heavenly city. These images, placed in deliberate opposition within the manuscript, represent medieval concepts of good and evil with remarkable artistic sophistication. The devil's portrait, occupying page 577, remains one of the most discussed aspects of the manuscript. The figure stands in isolation against the vellum background, measuring nearly 20 inches in height. The portrait depicts a distinctive representation of evil. A frontal view of a horned figure with a green face, elongated claws, and a scarlet tongue. The devil wears an ermine loincloth traditionally associated with royalty, perhaps suggesting his status as the Prince of Darkness. Most striking are the eyes, which seem to engage directly with the viewer, creating an unsettling effect that has captivated observers for centuries. The technical execution of the devil's portrait demonstrates exceptional artistic skill. The artist employed a limited but effective color palette, primarily using red, green, and brown pigments. The figure's musculature shows careful anatomical observation, while the facial features display remarkable detail. The use of shading and line work creates a sense of volume and presence that makes the image particularly memorable. In contrast, the depiction of the heavenly city presents an intricate architectural composition. The illustration shows a fortified city with multiple towers and battlements, rendered in precise detail. The artist employed sophisticated perspective techniques, unusual for the period, to create depth and dimensionality. Golden gates and jeweled walls reflect descriptions from the Book of Revelation, while the overall composition suggests both physical and spiritual protection. The heavenly city's architectural elements carry specific symbolic meaning. The 12 towers represent the apostles, while the 4 main gates correspond to the cardinal directions mentioned in biblical descriptions of the New Jerusalem. The artist included subtle details such as angels guarding the ramparts and light emanating from within the city, emphasizing its divine nature. The placement of these illustrations within the manuscript follows careful theological consideration. The The devil's portrait appears near texts concerning exorcism and the power of evil, while the heavenly city accompanies passages about salvation and eternal life. This positioning creates a visual sermon on the consequences of moral choices. The artistic techniques employed in both illustrations reveal a sophisticated understanding of medieval symbolism. In the devil's portrait, the ermine fur and crown-like horns suggest perverted authority, while the clawed hands reaching outward imply active malevolence. The heavenly city's ordered architecture and golden details represent divine perfection and eternal peace. Color symbolism plays a crucial role in both illustrations. The devil's green complexion recalls decay and corruption, while the red elements suggest blood and violence. In contrast, the heavenly city employs gold, white, and blue, traditional colors associated with divine glory and purity. These color choices reflect medieval color theory and its application in religious art. The relationship between these two images creates a powerful visual dialogue about medieval Christian theology. Their contrasting styles, the organic, grotesque features of the devil versus the geometric, orderly architecture of heaven, reinforces their opposing spiritual significance. This visual dichotomy serves as a meditation on human choice and divine judgment. The Codex Gigas contains one of medieval manuscript history's most intriguing mysteries. 8 pages have been removed from the original manuscript. These missing folios create significant gaps in the text, raising questions about their content and the circumstances of their removal. The physical evidence suggests deliberate extraction rather than natural deterioration or damage. The most notable absence occurs at the beginning of Genesis, where the manuscript abruptly starts with chapter 4. The missing opening pages would have contained the creation narrative and the early stories of Adam and Eve, traditionally some of the most elaborately illustrated sections in medieval Bibles. Analysis of the manuscript's binding reveals that these pages were removed with precision, leaving behind traces that indicate a careful and intentional removal rather than accidental loss. Another significant gap appears in the manuscript's monastic rules section. Based on the manuscript's structure and comparable medieval texts, these missing pages likely contained specific Benedictine regulations governing monastery life. The removal of these pages occurred before the manuscript's acquisition by the Swedish Royal Collection in 1649, as inventories from that period already note their absence. Historical records from the Podlages Monastery provide indirect evidence about the timing of these removals. Documentation from the early 15th century mentions the manuscript as complete, suggesting the pages disappeared during the tumultuous period of religious reforms and conflicts that followed. The monastery's financial records from this period show signs of distress, raising the possibility that individual pages might have been sold separately for their artistic value. The physical examination of the manuscript reveals important details about the missing sections. Thread marks and page stubs indicate that the removed folios were originally part of the manuscript's standard gatherings. Microscopic analysis of the remaining binding shows that the removal was executed with a sharp instrument, likely by someone familiar with bookbinding techniques. The content of these missing pages has been subject to extensive scholarly speculation. Comparative analysis with other medieval manuscripts from the same period suggests that the Genesis pages would have contained elaborate illustrations of the creation story, potentially including unique artistic interpretations that might have been considered controversial in later periods. The removal of the monastic rule pages presents a different kind of mystery. These pages would have contained specific instructions for monastery governance and daily life. Their deliberate removal might indicate changes in monastic practices or an attempt to obscure particular aspects of the monastery's history. The precision of their removal suggests institutional rather than individual action. Recent codicological studies have provided new insights into the missing sections. Analysis of ink residue on adjacent pages has revealed traces of text and illumination, allowing scholars to partially reconstruct the layout and some content of the missing folios. This evidence confirms that the removed pages maintained the same high artistic and calligraphic standards as the rest of the manuscript. The impact of these missing pages extends beyond historical curiosity. Their absence creates significant gaps in understanding the manuscript's original purpose and complete message. The missing Genesis pages, in particular, would have provided crucial insight into the artistic program of the entire work and its theological interpretation of creation. The Podlagis Monastery, nestled in the Bohemian countryside, served as the birthplace and first home of the Codex Gigas. During the early 13th century, this Benedictine monastery held a position of significant religious and cultural importance in the region. The monastery's scriptorium, where the manuscript was created, maintained high standards of craftsmanship and scholarly dedication that made the creation of such an ambitious work possible. The monastery's daily life centered around the rhythms of prayer, work, and study prescribed by the rule of Saint Benedict. The creation of manuscripts formed an integral part of this routine, with dedicated scribes working in carefully designed spaces that maximized natural light. The scriptorium's organization reflected the monastery's commitment to preserving and transmitting knowledge through written texts. Financial records from the period indicate that Podlagice Monastery enjoyed considerable prosperity during the Codex Gigas' creation. This wealth enabled the procurement of essential materials, including the highest quality parchment and expensive pigments required for such an ambitious project. The monastery's accounts show substantial investments in materials specifically designated for this manuscript's production. The completion of the Codex Gigas marked a pivotal moment in the monastery's history. Contemporary records indicate that the manuscript quickly became the monastery's most prized possession, attracting visitors from other religious institutions across Europe. These visitors often brought gifts and donations, temporarily enhancing the monastery's prestige and financial standing. However, the manuscript's presence also brought unexpected challenges to the monastic community. The increasing number of visitors disrupted the monastery's contemplative atmosphere, while the manuscript's growing fame raised security concerns. The monastery's chronicles note the implementation of special measures to protect the manuscript, including restricted access and dedicated guardians. During this period, the monastery developed specific protocols for the manuscript's use and preservation. Only selected members of the community received permission to handle the book, and specific ceremonies accompanied its rare public displays. These practices reflected both the manuscript's practical value and its growing symbolic importance to the monastery's identity. The monastery's relationship with the manuscript underwent significant changes as its reputation grew. What began as a scholarly and devotional project evolved into a symbol of institutional prestige. Records indicate that the monastery's leadership carefully managed access to the manuscript, using it to forge diplomatic connections with other religious houses and secular authorities. In 1594, the Codex Gigas entered a new phase of its history when it came into the possession of Emperor Rudolf II, one of Europe's most intriguing monarchs. The transfer occurred as part of a complex financial arrangement between the monastery, which had fallen into debt, and the imperial treasury. Rudolf II, known for his passionate interest in arts, sciences, and esoteric knowledge, recognized the manuscript's exceptional value and arranged for its transport to Prague Castle. The emperor's acquisition of the Codex Gigas aligned perfectly with his vision of creating the world's most comprehensive collection of cultural and intellectual treasures. Prague Castle, under Rudolf II, had become a center of Renaissance learning, attracting scholars, artists, and intellectuals from across Europe. The manuscript took its place among an extraordinary collection that included astronomical instruments, rare books, and artistic masterpieces. Rudolf II provided unprecedented resources for the manuscript's preservation. Court records detail the creation of a special storage space within the castle library, featuring controlled environmental conditions that were remarkably advanced for the period. The emperor appointed dedicated custodians responsible for the manuscript's care and supervised access to its contents. The emperor's personal interest in the Codex Gigas went beyond mere collecting. Contemporary accounts describe his frequent visits to study its contents, particularly focusing on the medical and astronomical sections. His court scholars produced detailed analyses of the manuscript's various texts, creating extensive commentaries that enhanced understanding of its contents. During this period, the manuscript's reputation evolved significantly. Within Rudolph's court, it became known not just as a religious text, but as a comprehensive repository of medieval knowledge. The emperor encouraged scholarly study of its contents, leading to the first systematic documentation of its various texts and illustrations. The manuscript's presence in Prague Castle also influenced its subsequent history. Rudolph's court became a meeting point for scholars from across Europe, many of whom documented their examinations of the Codex Gigas. These accounts, preserved in various European archives, provide valuable insights into the manuscript's condition and contents during this crucial period. However, the manuscript's time in Rudolph's collection would eventually come to an end. The political upheavals that marked the final years of Rudolph's reign created uncertainty about the fate of his collections. As his power declined, concerns grew about the security of the manuscript and other treasures housed in Prague Castle. The 30 Years' War, 1608 to 1648, marked a dramatic turning point in the history of the Codex Gigas. During this devastating conflict, which reshaped the political and religious landscape of Europe, the manuscript faced its greatest peril and underwent a transformative journey that would determine its future location and preservation. In the summer of 1648, as the war approached its conclusion, Swedish forces under Field Marshal Hans Christoph von Königsmarck launched a strategic assault on Prague. The Swedish army, known for its systematic approach to acquiring cultural treasures, specifically targeted Prague Castle's renowned collections. Among their primary objectives was the Imperial Library, which housed the Codex Gigas, alongside other precious manuscripts and books. The Swedish forces implemented a carefully planned operation to secure the manuscript. Contemporary accounts describe how specialized units within the army, tasked with identifying and preserving valuable cultural artifacts, immediately recognized the Codex Gigas' significance. Under direct orders from Queen Christina of Sweden, who possessed a profound interest in literature and learning, the manuscript received priority status for immediate transfer to Stockholm. The journey from Prague to Stockholm required exceptional planning. The manuscript's size and weight presented unique transportation challenges. Swedish military records detail the construction of a special wooden case, lined with protective materials, to safeguard the book during its northern journey. The transportation route avoided major battlefields and areas of conflict, following a carefully chosen path through friendly territories. Upon arriving in Stockholm, the Codex Gigas immediately assumed a position of prominence in the royal library. Queen Christina, renowned for her intellectual pursuits, arranged for suitable housing of the manuscript within the castle. The Queen assembled a team of scholars to study and document the manuscript, initiating the first comprehensive Swedish examination of its contents. The Swedish royal administration implemented new protocols for the manuscript's preservation. Court records from this period reveal the establishment of specific guidelines for handling and viewing the book. The Royal Library designated particular officials responsible for its care, maintaining detailed records of all interactions with the manuscript. During these early years in Swedish possession, the Codex Gigas became a symbol of Sweden's emerging status as a cultural and intellectual power. The Swedish court actively promoted the manuscript's presence, inviting scholars from across Europe to study its contents. This period marked the beginning of systematic academic research into the manuscript's history and significance. The Swedish acquisition also ensured the manuscript's survival during a period when many other medieval documents were lost to war and destruction. The careful preservation methods implemented by the Swedish Royal Library established standards that would protect the manuscript for centuries to come. The history of the Codex Gigas at Stockholm Castle includes several notable events that have been documented in official records and contemporary accounts. Among these, the most significant occurred in 1697 during the Great Castle Fire, which threatened the entire royal collection and led to dramatic efforts to save the manuscript. On May 7, 1697, fire broke out in Stockholm Castle's northern wing. The Royal Library's head librarian, Johann Gabriel Sparwenfeld, immediately organized efforts to save the castle's precious manuscripts. According to his official report, the rescue of the Codex Gigas received priority attention due to its historical significance and irreplaceable nature. The manuscript's size and weight presented unique challenges during the evacuation. Contemporary accounts describe the systematic evacuation procedure implemented by Sparwenfeld and his staff. The librarians employed a carefully coordinated effort to move the massive manuscript, requiring multiple people to carry it safely. The evacuation route led through the castle's narrow corridors and down several flights of stairs, making the task particularly challenging under emergency conditions. Court records detail the specific measures taken to protect the manuscript during this crisis. The librarians wrapped the Codex Gigas in protective coverings before moving it, demonstrating remarkable presence of mind despite the urgent circumstances. The manuscript was temporarily stored in a secure location away from the castle until the fire danger passed. During its time at Stockholm Castle, the manuscript underwent several significant examinations by scholars and religious authorities. These examinations generated detailed reports that provide valuable information about the manuscript's condition and contents during this period. The reports particularly focused on the manuscript's unusual features, including its size, uniformity of script, and distinctive illustrations. The Royal Library maintained careful documentation of all interactions with the manuscript. These records show a pattern of controlled access, with specific protocols governing who could handle the book and under what conditions. The library staff kept detailed logs of each viewing session, including the names of visitors and the purpose of their examination. Professional analyses conducted during this period provided important insights into the manuscript's physical characteristics. Expert bookbinders and conservators who examined the Codex Gigas documented its binding techniques, material quality, and preservation state. Their reports contribute significantly to our understanding of medieval bookmaking practices. The Swedish Royal Library's systematic approach to preservation established new standards for manuscript conservation. Their methods included regular condition assessments, controlled environmental conditions, and detailed documentation of any changes or interventions. These practices helped ensure the manuscript's survival in remarkably good condition. The careful record-keeping during this period also provides insights into how the manuscript was used and studied. Scholarly visitations, royal viewings, and conservation efforts were all meticulously documented, creating a valuable historical record of the manuscript's role in academic and cultural life. Modern scientific examination of the Codex Gigas has revealed remarkable insights into its creation, materials, and preservation. The National Library of Sweden, in collaboration with international experts, has conducted comprehensive analyses using advanced technological methods while maintaining strict preservation protocols. Material analysis of the manuscript's parchment confirms the historical accounts of its composition. Microscopic examination reveals consistently high-quality vellum throughout the manuscript, supporting records that indicate the use of carefully selected animal skins. The uniform preparation of these materials demonstrates exceptional craftsmanship and attention to detail in the manuscript's planning stages. The inks used in the manuscript have undergone detailed chemical analysis. The primary text employs an iron gall ink composition typical of medieval manuscripts, but with notably consistent quality throughout. The red and blue pigments used for decorative elements contain minerals commonly available in medieval Bohemia, supporting the manuscript's documented origin. The remarkable preservation of these colors provides evidence of superior manufacturing techniques. Handwriting analysis has produced particularly significant findings. Expert paleographers have confirmed that the entire manuscript was indeed written by a single scribe, validating historical accounts. The writing maintains remarkable consistency in letter formation, spacing, and line weight throughout the manuscript. This consistency extends across all sections, including the main text, annotations, and corrections. The binding structure has received detailed examination using non-invasive imaging techniques. These studies reveal multiple layers of historical conservation efforts, while confirming much of the original medieval binding structure remains intact. The current binding incorporates elements from various periods, documenting the manuscript's journey through different conservation approaches. Conservation assessment has identified specific environmental factors affecting the manuscript's preservation. Temperature, humidity, and light exposure are carefully monitored and controlled. The National Library maintains precise environmental conditions based on these scientific findings, ensuring optimal preservation while allowing controlled access for research. Parchment analysis has provided insights into medieval manufacturing techniques. The preparation methods show remarkable consistency, suggesting systematic quality control in the original production process. The thickness and texture of pages remain notably uniform throughout the manuscript, indicating careful selection and preparation of materials. Recent studies have focused on the manuscript's decorative elements, particularly the famous full-page illustrations. Analysis of pigments and application techniques has revealed sophisticated artistic methods that were advanced for the period. The examination of brushwork and paint composition provides new understanding of medieval artistic practices. Modern scholarship regarding the authorship of the Codex Gigas has developed through careful analysis of historical documentation and advanced paleographic examination. The traditional attribution to the monk Hermann, recorded in the manuscript as Hermann Inclusus, continues to generate significant academic discussion among medieval scholars. Historical documentation from the Podlazhets monastery provides the primary evidence for Hermann's authorship. The manuscript contains his signature, Hermann Inclusus, which appears in a style consistent with the main text. Contemporary monastery records confirm the presence of a scribe named Hermann during the relevant period, lending credibility to this attribution. Paleographic analysis has produced compelling evidence supporting single authorship. Expert examination reveals consistent writing patterns throughout the manuscript, including distinctive letter formations and specific scribal habits that persist across all sections. The systematic analysis of letter shapes, spacing, and ink application demonstrates remarkable uniformity that would be nearly impossible to achieve with multiple scribes. The level of consistency in the manuscript's execution has led scholars to examine the practical aspects of its creation. Time studies conducted by paleographic experts suggest that the work would have required approximately 20 years of dedicated labor by a single scribe. This timeline aligns with documented medieval scribal practices and the physical evidence of the manuscript's production. Recent scholarly work has focused on understanding the educational background necessary to produce such a comprehensive work. The manuscript's contents demonstrate extensive knowledge of theology, history, and medicine, suggesting the scribe possessed significant scholarly training. This academic preparation aligns with documented educational practices in Benedictine monasteries of the period. Analysis of the manuscript's organizational structure reveals sophisticated planning that suggests a single coordinating intelligence. The consistent layout, cross-referencing system, and integration of various texts indicate careful oversight by one individual throughout the production process. This systematic approach supports the traditional attribution to a single, highly trained scribe. The Codex Gigas represents an invaluable resource for understanding medieval intellectual and cultural history. Its comprehensive content provides unique insights into medieval knowledge systems, scribal practices, and monastic life. Scholars consider it one of the most significant surviving medieval manuscripts, offering unparalleled opportunities for research across multiple disciplines. In the field of medieval studies, the manuscript serves as a crucial reference point for understanding book production practices. Its exceptional state of preservation allows researchers to examine medieval bookmaking techniques in remarkable detail. The consistent quality of its execution provides valuable insights into the highest standards of medieval craftsmanship and scholarly dedication. The manuscript's role in educational research extends beyond medieval studies. It serves as a primary source for understanding the transmission of knowledge in medieval Europe. The organization and presentation of its diverse contents demonstrate how medieval scholars approached the systematization of human knowledge. This aspect makes it particularly valuable for studying the development of educational practices and intellectual traditions. From a preservation perspective, The Codex Gigas sets important benchmarks for manuscript conservation. The National Library of Sweden's ongoing preservation efforts have established protocols that influence the care of other medieval manuscripts worldwide. The successful preservation of such a large and complex manuscript provides valuable lessons for cultural heritage conservation. The manuscript's importance extends to art history through its distinctive illustrations and decorative elements. The famous full-page illustrations, particularly the portrait of the devil and the heavenly city, offer unique examples of medieval iconography. These images continue to influence scholarly understanding of medieval artistic conventions and symbolic representation. For contemporary historical research, the manuscript provides essential documentation of medieval Bohemian history. Its inclusion of local chronicles and historical records offers valuable insights into Central European medieval society. The manuscript's own journey through history, documented through ownership records and institutional archives, illuminates patterns of cultural exchange and preservation in European history. The Codex Gigas has captured public imagination and maintained enduring cultural relevance in the modern era. Its presence in Stockholm's National Library attracts thousands of visitors annually, demonstrating sustained public interest in medieval manuscript heritage. The library has developed comprehensive educational programs that present the manuscript's historical significance while addressing popular misconceptions. Public exhibitions featuring the Codex Gigas have consistently drawn significant attendance. The National Library's permanent display provides visitors with detailed information about the manuscript's creation, contents, and historical journey. Interactive educational materials help visitors understand medieval book production techniques and the manuscript's role in preserving medieval knowledge. Educational institutions have incorporated the Codex Gigas into their curricula as a case study in medieval history and manuscript production. Universities and research institutions regularly conduct seminars and workshops focused on the manuscript's various aspects. These academic programs emphasize the manuscript's historical significance while dispelling common myths about its origins. Documentary films and educational programs have brought the manuscript story to wider audiences. These productions typically focus on the historical context of its creation and its significance in medieval scholarship. Professional historians and manuscript experts contribute to these presentations, ensuring accurate representation of the manuscript's history and importance. The National Library's digital initiatives have made the manuscript accessible to global audiences. High-resolution digital photography allows detailed examination of the manuscript's pages online. This digital access has revolutionized research possibilities while protecting the original manuscript from excessive handling. Museums worldwide have incorporated information about the Codex Gigas into their medieval exhibitions. These presentations typically focus on the manuscript's role in medieval book production and its significance in European cultural heritage. Educational materials emphasize the manuscript's historical context and its contribution to understanding medieval intellectual life. Professional organizations regularly conduct workshops and seminars focused on the manuscript's conservation techniques. These events bring together experts in manuscript preservation, providing valuable opportunities for knowledge exchange. The preservation methods developed for the Codex Gigas continue to influence conservation practices for other historical documents. The Codex Gigas stands as a remarkable testament to medieval scholarship and craftsmanship. Through comprehensive historical research and modern scientific analysis, we have gained significant insights into this extraordinary manuscript's creation, journey, and preservation. The evidence consistently supports its creation by a single scribe in the early 13th century, demonstrating exceptional planning and execution throughout its production. The manuscript's physical characteristics remain unparalleled in medieval book production. Its consistent quality of materials, uniformity of script, and sophisticated organization system demonstrate remarkable achievement in manuscript creation. The careful selection of texts and their arrangement reveals a comprehensive approach to knowledge preservation, characteristic of medieval intellectual traditions. Historical documentation traces the manuscript's journey through significant periods of European history. From its origins in the Podlajic monastery to its current home in the National Library of Sweden, the Codex Gigas has survived numerous challenges while maintaining its physical integrity and cultural significance. The preservation efforts throughout its history have ensured that this remarkable work remains accessible for contemporary study and appreciation. The Codex Gigas continues to serve as an invaluable resource for understanding medieval intellectual and cultural history. Its comprehensive contents provide unique insights into medieval knowledge systems, scribal practices, and monastic life. Modern scholarship continues to uncover new aspects of its significance through advanced analytical techniques and interdisciplinary research approaches. The manuscript's importance extends beyond its historical value. It serves as a model for conservation practices, demonstrating successful preservation strategies for large medieval manuscripts. The National Library of Sweden's ongoing preservation efforts establish important precedents for the care of similar historical documents worldwide. The Codex Gigas maintains relevance in contemporary education and research. Its digitization has made it accessible to scholars and students globally, facilitating new research perspectives and educational opportunities. The manuscript's comprehensive nature continues to provide valuable insights into medieval approaches to knowledge organization and transmission. As we look to the future, the Codex Gigas remains a symbol of human achievement and dedication to knowledge preservation. Its survival through centuries of historical upheaval demonstrates the enduring value of cultural heritage preservation. The manuscript continues to inspire new generations of scholars, conservators, and students, ensuring its legacy will persist well into the future. Thank you for joining us on this fascinating journey through the history of the Devil's Bible. We greatly appreciate your time and attention to this remarkable medieval manuscript. If you found this exploration of the Codex Gigas intriguing, please consider subscribing to our channel for more in-depth historical content. Your subscription helps support our team in creating thoroughly researched educational content. Please share your thoughts and perspectives in the comments section below. We value your insights and would love to hear your take on this extraordinary piece of history. If you enjoyed this video, showing your support with a like helps us reach more history enthusiasts like yourself. Consider sharing this video with friends, family, or anyone interested in medieval history and mysterious manuscripts. Stay tuned for our upcoming episodes exploring more fascinating historical artifacts and stories. Together, we can continue uncovering and preserving these remarkable pieces of our shared cultural heritage.